I used to drink alcohol way too frequently and way too much. And although it felt innocent, harmless, and fun, it was actually for all the wrong reasons. If this sounds like something you do too, and you want to either stop drinking alcohol or you've already decided to stop and it's a very difficult and arduous journey, well then come along for my ride. This is my sobriety story where I share with you the wins, challenges, and losses of my quitting alcohol adventure. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how long does it take to recover from alcohol, or how long does it take to actually heal your relationship or your addiction to the substance. Monstrous topic with loads of variables, and I'm going to do my best to break it down into the most practical and useful steps that leads to the point where you can live a life that is better than the one before without alcohol in it. And if you've reached a point in your relationship with alcohol where you want to learn how to control it, that will be answered in this video too. It's important to mention that I have said in previous videos that I have quit drinking numerous times over a decade, and I want to share with you in this video why that doesn't have to be the case for you. That if you want to nip this in the bud, there are ways to get through that much quicker if you avoid some of the mistakes that I made. Let's get into it. Let's start with what would probably be the most insignificant part of recovering from alcohol. That is literally going from I'm drunk back to feeling normal without that feeling of guilt and shame. Basically, where you've put the episode of drinking so far in the past that it doesn't affect you anymore. That will vastly vary from person to person, but here's my experience of it. I'm going to shove in a little side note here. I'm talking about the times where you go too far, where you drink just way too much and you feel sick the next day. And if you're over 30, well, at least the next 2 to 3 days. There have been so many times where I have wasted an entire day being hungover. In the less serious cases, I would still go to work, pretend like everything's okay, and, pull up a brave face, sit at my desk, and by halfway through that day, I've just lost all steam and power, all ability to concentrate. And I'm basically there just like clicking the mouse, waiting for the day to end. So much precious time was wasted. I've also had more serious cases where I've gone to work and the next day I would kind of get a bout of illness and then have to run to the bathroom and throw up. Didn't happen very often, but when it did, I really started to think, shit, there must be something wrong with me. This can't be normal. And then there were those rare occasions where you blew it entirely and you actually ended up calling in sick the next day. Now let's contrast that to a different situation, like looking at weekends, Saturday nights, or big occasions like New Year's parties, where the focus was actually to go and party. In those cases, I'd also pretty much use up the whole of the next day, just lying around, unable to sleep, wishing I could sleep, but unable to, just stuffing my face with gross food and half watching movies and waiting for time to pass. Again, what a waste of time. But I wasn't bothered at the time because all I was focused on was feeling physically better again. In both cases, my entire focus was just on getting physically recovered. The second wave usually came afterwards in the second, third, and fourth day, which was the feeling of guilt that I had wasted that time, that I could be doing something better with my life. Why do I always do this to myself? And making all those bargaining efforts to say I'm never going to do this again, or I'm going to not do this for another month, or whatever other promises I made myself that I didn't stick to. The reason I split that into two categories is because when it came to the work situations, that guilt was way, way, way more intense. And when it was an allowed party, I could kind of brush it off because, well, this was normal. I'm sure other people were feeling the same way. And everybody had a good time. So that's the price you pay for a good time. All in all, when it came to recovering from actually drinking, I would go through these cycles and a couple of days later, I would be ready to do it all over again. And this continued for me for years. The only thing that really changed over time is that the hangovers, the physical part, got a little bit worse and the guilt and shame got a little bit more acute. So I just kind of pushed it down even further. Most of that you probably already know. So let's get into a little bit more of an important topic. When you realize that you've got a problem and you want to quit drinking, even if it's just for a period like 30 days or 2 months or 3 months, how long does it take to recover to feel like you've got control again? Now, this is where the stories from person to person will start to vary because it all depends on your relationship with alcohol. And as you know from me, from previous videos, that changed over the years. So similarly, over time, this changed for me too. The first time that I ever tried to stop drinking for a time period was at 23, the time I went to AA, and that was about 5 years into drinking. And I managed to do 3 months, and I felt like I had completely cured myself. Like that was it. I'm never going to have this problem again. After that, I had a period of up to about 2 years where I could say I drank responsibly, where those episodes of feeling guilt and shame, of those really overdoing it, was dramatically reduced down to only when it was actually a party. I didn't miss work. I didn't misbehave too badly. Everything was kind of pulled together. And then it started to show itself again. I started to misbehave ever so slightly. And so I said, wait, I've been here before. I know what to do. Let's do 30 days sober. I thought it would be as easy as it was the first time because I had all this energy and this new identity of I've been to AA and I don't drink anymore. But the second time was definitely a little bit harder. I felt kind of the cravings and the discomfort of not having that alcohol in my life again. Nonetheless, I squeezed myself through that, and 30 days later, I felt like a new person again. I started drinking responsibly again, I was behaved, and within about 6 months, I started to slide again. Same story, repeat, abstinence, and I was fine again. And within about 2 months, I started to slide again. You can see the pattern here. Basically, the windows of me recovering kept getting smaller until, of course, I realized many years later I was lying to myself. It was all a scam for me to continue drinking. From the ages of about 28, 29 to 34, my life was going pretty well. I was growing a business, I was learning, I was getting healthier, but I was still in and out of these cycles, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. And it was only years later that I realized the cost of all of this and how much potential I had to grow and how much that was being wasted on these hangovers. So here's the third chapter. When I started to actually address the trauma, when I started to do the inner work, the shadow work, and realize why am I drinking, what is alcohol doing for me, and how can I replace it with something better, that was the day that I actually started healing from alcoholism. And after doing all of that, the healing felt almost instantaneous. But I didn't quite trust myself yet. So I said, let's see where this goes. And 2 months passed, 3 months passed, 4 months passed without any alcohol. And I thought, wait, this is going really well. I want to keep this up. And what I noticed was that my life was actually improving exponentially in this time period. Without too much effort, without changing my diet too radically, I had dropped 20 kilograms. I actually have to push in this. This is a little video of what my face looked like while I was still drinking in that time period. I was 99 kilograms and very quickly dropped down to 80 with, not that much effort. But not just that, my productivity at work, everything was just like on this upward spiral. Okay, I've said a lot. Let's summarize it, reduce it down to 3 important points. The first one is that you can't entirely trust yourself while you're still drinking. You don't know what's a lie and what's true. A lot of what you feel to be true and actually is true in the moment will fade over time because it comes from that when you are feeling shameful, when you are feeling hungover. It's not that you're not trustworthy, it's just that you're not trustworthy. Yeah, I know. The second point is that unless you are actually going to go on a journey of healing the problem inside, this cycle is going to just keep continuing and it's going to either expand or contract depending on how stressful your life is and what you're going through. And the third and the most exciting point is that the actual real healing process, that feeling that I am better, I am recovered, can and probably mostly is instantaneous. It is a moment where you go, this is going to change. I'm going on a different path right now. But how can you be sure that this time it's real? How do you know when that is the case? And I can only tell you, when you quit for long enough and you start to see those replacement habits impact your life in a positive way, that's when you know you really know deep inside that I could go back to drinking. I'm allowed to. It's not that I'm not allowed to drink. I'm not restricting myself. It's that I don't want to. I really don't actually want to. And that was the biggest identity shift that changed when I quit 2.5 years ago. And with that, there is now a big, massive elephant in the room. Why did I relapse? Why did I, after going through even my most huge mental breakthrough, emotional release, did I still fall back into drinking? And that is a very, very important video that I'm going to be doing next. This video is getting a little bit long now, so any unanswered questions that I brought up in the intro will directly continue off into the next video. It is a continuation of this story. As we end this one off, I am going to put in one big disclaimer here that needs to be said. And that is that I am not a qualified quit alcohol coach. I am merely sharing my own personal stories of what has and hasn't worked. And I have exact clarity on why I slipped back in. And that's exactly why I'm doing this series, is to talk to myself almost and say, you see what happens when you do this? One has to also recognize that there are many different ways that you can abuse alcohol. You can drink too much, you can drink too often, you can become a different type of alcoholic too. There are different levels. People are in the early phase, there are people who are decades into drinking. And of course, every one of them has a different story and a different path to recovery, and also obviously a different time of how long it will take them to recover. And this is why I'm also telling a lot of personal stories on this channel, so that you can assess, yes, you know, I'm actually a lot like Dean. My life resembles that very much. And if that is you, welcome to the channel, subscribe, because I've got a lot more coming, a lot more personal stories, some embarrassing, some funny, some great, some inspirational. I look forward to getting into it. So thanks for being here. Thanks to the new subscribers and the people asking questions. I will get to your questions in separate videos. For now, I've got a whole string of things that I need to get through. And yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. See you in the next video.